alcohol and drug rehabilitation centers. We have inpatient, outpatient, residentials, and you name it. And then the Action Foundation, which I'll let you talk about.
The Action Family Foundation, which has something really neat coming up. They've got that vehicle that's going to get rolling out in the streets pretty soon. And then, of course, in the schools. What a fantastic thing to be in the schools and to have those have the gatherings in the evening that parents can be involved in.
Exactly. It's one more tool for the toolbox. Sadly, it's a moving memorial.
Yeah.
Because you don't really want to plant a memorial in the ground for people that lost their lives to overdoses, because then you got people that might want to celebrate the ways we don't want them to.
Yeah, no kidding.
So this is a moving one, and we can do a lot of different things with it and reach out to a lot more people.
But it's a neat looking. It's not a truck really. It's more like a trailer.
It's a motorhome.
It's a motorhome, and it actually looks like you're on the road. It really does.
It does, just with a lot of different stuff.
I still think you should consider having the Action Band tour.
Yeah, we could create a band,
a touring band.
Our board op, he can be the main singer. What do you think? You in?
He's giving us a thumbs up.
He's doing
I guess
it.
he's up.
He's in
up for it.
He's in. So you got some action items, don't you?
From the action file, we have a bunch of shorties, but these are so important. Listen to this, Cary. Several, and this is from the director of the University of Maryland Center for Substance Abuse Research. Excuse you.
Excuse me again.
Bless you.
I couldn't get away from that one.
The way the weather's been going on, I'm not
telling you, it must be.
Several local governments have started to include synthetic cannabinoids in their criminal justice drug monitoring programs in an effort to deter their use, after it became clear that many people were using the drugs because they knew the tests couldn't be detected.
And that's spice and all that kind of stuff that you can, different cities, they're around them. You can go down to Venice and Hollywood, it's all over the place, spice, K2, K9, whatever it's called.
And they use that because, hey, they can't detect it.
Here's the problem with drug testing. When we have so many parents that go to your local pharmacies and they buy drug tests. Problem is, most of the time they buy THC drug tests because they're the cheapest. So when your kid realizes, hey, they're testing me for just THC, they start using other drugs. When they start buying the 10 panels and they test for all drugs, the kids go, wow, I'll start using synthetics because they can't test for that. Bottom line, yes, you can. It's a special test. It's a little bit more money, and you have to send it to a special lab, but you can test for anything today.
And it's well worth it to do that.
No, it's well worth it. I mean, we could test for all synthetic THCs. We can test for LSD. We can even go test for alcohol back 3 days.
Really?
So there's all kinds of new and better testing when it comes to that, but they're a little bit more money, and you got to ask specifically for those drugs and or alcohol.
What a service, though, that you guys are providing.
But you see, you really got to be aware of that stuff, because kids, especially, people in general, they're sneaky. Especially people that like to use alcohol and drugs. Children are really pretty sneaky. I was driving to the radio station today, and the phone rang, and it was a dad, and he says, guess what I found under my kid's bed? And I knew it was one of two things. It was going to be drugs or urine. So I took a lucky guess, and I said, urine. He said, how did you know? Because I hear it every day. You know, they also they save urine. So when they get tested, they have it, and it's clean. So there's just so many things going on. So, I mean, if you're going to test your kid, number one, test for everything. Don't just test for pot. Number two, be there when you test them. And number three, the best time to test your adolescent or anybody is when they first wake up in the morning. Everybody's got to go to the bathroom, and they don't have a chance to go fiddling around and finding what they've got hidden or clean their drug tests and that kind of stuff. And if not, you can always bring them to Action, and we will be glad to test for you.
Here's another one from the action file, Cary, from the Huffington Post.
The Huffington Post.
They are reporting that teens with severe drug and alcohol problems often have a low regard for others. A new study suggests...
I think everybody with a severe alcohol or drug problem has a severe thought of others.
They have higher rates of driving under the influence and having unprotected sex with a history of sexually transmitted diseases.
I wonder why. The first thing that happens when you lose your ability when you drink or use drugs and you start getting high. You lose your ability to make good decisions. Your reasoning are gone.
And they didn't have a lot of that ability to begin with because their brains aren't fully developed.
And exactly, but I remember I was doing all that Ricky Lake stuff and
Yes.
Montel Williams stuff, and I was in New York a lot, and I went to an NA meeting, and instead of Narcotics Anonymous literature, all the literature there was living with HIV and AIDS. Because they had such an epidemic, and here's why. You get somebody that's addicted to, let's say, heroin, right? They're starting to, or pills, or whatever the deal is. They're starting to feel sick because they don't have the drug. They walk into a room and somebody has a kit ready to shoot up, and all they're thinking is, oh my God, if I stick that needle in my arm, I'm going to feel better. In a minute, I'm going to feel normal. For a brief second, they might say to themselves, wow, but who knows if Joey over there has HIV or hepatitis, or maybe the person he slept with or he slept with. It lasts for about a second. And then that immediate response to, I want to feel good right now.
And that just overrides everything.
Overrides everything, even though they know they shouldn't. They stick the needle in their arm. And because of that, they had an unbelievable epidemic of HIV and AIDS and hepatitis in New York back then. So that's before the needle exchange and all that stuff was out. So when somebody is in that state of mind where they want to get high, everything else comes second. Their family, their friends, their job, their school, and everything else, and they're going to get high no matter what.
Yeah.
At any expense. And one of the definitions of addiction is getting loaded regardless of consequences. The other one is doing the same thing over and over. I have to say this to myself about personal stuff, but doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Yes, that one is the definition of insanity.
That is definitely the definition of insanity.
Which we see on a daily basis.
Which we see, don't we? Every day.
We do, of course.
Yeah.
This one comes from the New York Times. The St. Louis area has been flooded with a cheap new form of potent heroin, leading to a wave of overdoses, addiction, and crime, Cary.
It's everywhere, Mike. It's not just there. I mean, we're getting it from Sacramento, Texas. I mean, I can go on and on down the line. 12 deaths, 10 deaths, 16 deaths, 6 deaths. I mean, it's what I'm hearing all week. So we have an epidemic right now when it comes to opiates. It always starts innocently obviously with cigarettes or pot, and then it gets to pills, and then it goes to heroin. But right now, you never know what you're doing especially when it comes to heroin, because it's cut with so many different things. People want to make it stronger. They put fentanyl. Fentanyl's 100 times stronger than 10, whatever.
We just talked about that last week, and people die from that very easily.
And a lot of the times, the dealers have no idea what they're getting, so they're selling it to this poor person that's just wanting to get high, shooting what he shoots yesterday will kill him today.
And that's literally what they were saying in Sacramento, was the dealers thought they were dealing Norco.
Exactly.
And the people thought they were buying Norco,
fentanyl.
and instead they were getting fentanyl.
And I was
died.
going to say, and that's the same thing with any kind of narcotic, not just heroin. Here, let's take prescription pills. Somebody goes to the doctor, they need a pill, they're sick, they have some kind of whatever it's some kind of pain, right? So they start taking pills. All of a sudden, they get addicted to it. They get a dependency, physical dependency. So they doctor shop. They go to first their doctor says, hey, I can't keep giving you more. Then they go to different doctors. Before you know it, they're not going to get any pills because they check the what is it called, the system, and they find out, hey, you've been taking way too many pills.
Especially now that they're leaning on doctors about that.
Exactly.
So that's going to dry up.
So they go to the street, and you could buy a lot of pharmaceutical pills on the street, but there are a lot of bootleg pills on the street now, meaning they look just like what they are, but they're not real. And, it could be fentanyl or anything else could be in there, even PCP. So we're seeing a lot of stuff coming out in the streets right now that's really pretty scary because of the opioid epidemic.
And as we see these reports that come across from different cities, we're going to be seeing more and more of them, aren't we?
We are. We're going to see more and more. It's not settling down, no matter what everybody's trying to do. Even the president's freeing up, $1 billion? I mean,
yes.
Everybody's going, oh my. But as we're doing more and more education and treatment, there's more and more pills, and they're coming out with stronger stuff now.
Sure are.
So it's really becoming dangerous. So it really starts, you know what, guys? I say it all the time. It starts at home. We really got to educate ourselves. We got to educate our children. The medical community needs to educate docs, which is starting to happen.
Yes.
And the government needs to keep track on who's writing what. So there's a lot of stuff that really needs to happen before it's going to beat down that number. I got to turn this thing off. It keeps ringing. I thought I had it off. But
Cary's dealing with his cell phone. I'm giving you the play-by-play.
The play-by-play.
It was vibrating the console.
Yeah, the problem with my cell phone is it's usually pretty much somebody calling me in crisis.
That's right, yes.
You know, so it's kind of, it's pretty scary.
We have another item from the action file. And as we started talking about this last week, April is Alcohol Awareness Month.
It is.
And last week, Cary, you said something that I really liked a lot. I mean, this one I thought really laid it on the line. You issued a challenge.
I did.
You issued a challenge. Actually, you issued 2 challenges.
Remind me. I think I remember what they were.
One of them was how people could determine whether they had a problem with alcohol or not.
Well, number one, if you think you have a problem with alcohol or any kind of drugs or anything in general, challenge yourself. Put it to a test. Stop. See if you can stop whatever that behavior is for a month. See what happens. Now, alcohol is a little bit different. So is prescription pills. It's a little bit more. It's a little more to it than that. Because if somebody's alcohol dependent and their body's starting to be addicted to that alcohol, you really do not want to just come off of it just like that. You want to get medical attention. It can become very deadly. And very, very dangerous.
But that was a great challenge. I mean, take a look at yourself. Yeah. And I'm going to read this in a moment because it deals exactly with that. But I wanted to remind you of your second challenge.
Okay.
You invited anyone to call in here to the show.
Right.
If they could call and honestly say they don't know anyone that has a problem with drinking or drugs.
And I mean it. I don't know anybody that doesn't know somebody in trouble with alcohol or drugs. I mean, do you?
No.
I don't know anybody. Here, do you? Do you know anybody that is not in trouble?
I absolutely do not.
So if you want to know,
you and I both got started early in life with that because we had a parent that was
exactly. But everybody knows somebody, and it's one of those kind of things that we can't keep silent about.
And Cary issued this challenge. If you actually don't know anyone who has an alcohol or a drug problem, we are inviting you to call in here and talk to us about it. The number is 661-298-5487. Jump all over that phone because we want to hear from you.
Well, people are afraid to call when it comes to that kind of stuff. But also, if you want to call us and join in on this conversation, pick up the phone and call. Anyways, if you know somebody's in trouble and you want advice, if you think you might be in trouble and you want advice, you can always call us at the same number, 298-5487. We're not going anywhere. We're right here, huh?
That we are here, and I'm gonna dovetail now into this action file. One question about drinking can help doctors find teens at risk for alcohol problems. And of course, as I read this story, I'm wondering, what is the question? That sounds amazing. One question will open it all up. And I'm going to tell you the
I think it's a pretty easy answer.
Yeah. It's almost in line with what you were saying. This is for doctors that are very busy.
Let me
They're
guess.
in a hurry.
Let me guess.
Ask
them.
That's pretty much it.
Pretty much ask them when, how much, and right.
They're asking them if they have engaged in 12 or more drinking days in the past year. Or they can even simplify it more than that and just say, how many days have you drank in the past year?
Kids
right down to the nitty-gritty.
Kids are amazing because when you look at them straight in the eye and you ask them a question, they will almost always tell you the right answer. You know how many times I've walked up to somebody, bring a kid to our group, and they say, I don't know what's going on. He's not going to school. He's lost his motivation. I'll look over at the kid and I'll say, Mike, how long have you been getting high? Right dead in their eyes. And they'll look at me most of the time, put their head down and go, I don't go high. I don't know what you're doing. Come on, cut it out. And they will get honest.
Yeah.
Almost every time. What have you, well, pot, what else? And they'll start reading out a laundry list. If I've done this 10,000 times, 9,995 times, They got honest.
And of course, now their parents are sitting there with their jaws dropped open, and or maybe some of them were just in denial and suspected it, but were just afraid to ask that question.
They're afraid to ask that question, or asked it and just blew it off when they said, "No, I don't."
I got to tell you a short story that relates to this.
Yeah.
I have no idea why my son was in junior high school, and he was in the living room of our home one day, and I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, Chris, how long have you been swearing at school?"
Right.
He turned 57 shades of red, and he looked at me and he goes, "How'd you know, Dad?" I said, "I didn't. I just asked a question." And he said, and he started crying, and he said, "Yeah, I started hanging out with these guys, and we were using really bad language, and he felt terrible, but I asked the question."
It's amazing when you look somebody in the eye and you ask them, kind of like you know it. They will answer the question and give you what you need to know.
That's a good one. So to the parents out there,
ask.
If you want to know if your child's using drugs or alcohol, ask them and look in their eyes when they give you the answer.
And don't back off.
Don't back
always,
off.
Parents always go with your gut too.
Yeah, don't just say, "Oh, okay." You can look them in the eyes and say, "Come on, come clean, tell me about it."
Yeah. And if you think something's going on, most of the time go with your gut. Your gut's going to be right.
Now, this is another one from the action file. This is very interesting, Cary. More than 4 million Americans admit to driving while intoxicated in the past month. That means over a year's period of time, we're talking about 48 million a year.
I think I see all of them. When I'm on the freeway and I'm cruising, I think I see them. The other day I saw a guy on a motorcycle. I don't know how he made it. He was clearly so loaded, what he was doing in cars, and
More than 4 million Americans, and this is just the ones that are admitting
Hey, Mike,
to
what's
it.
the most dangerous thing we do every day?
Get up out of bed.
What besides that? We got to do that. What is the most dangerous thing we do every day? Get behind the wheel of our car.
Oh, absolutely. That's a big, serious chunk of metal we're driving down the street.
That is the most dangerous thing we do every day for lots of reasons. I mean, think it through for 1 second. 4 million people are driving impaired. 4 million people are driving impaired out there, and we're driving down the street. So I guess what I'm saying is always be aware of what's going on around us. I really am. I'm really more careful than I ever been, and more aware of what's going on, especially on the freeways.
Yeah, and I've got to say, and I've said this before, and you have agreed with me, the people that are driving on our streets are just out of whack. It's so selfish out there. You've got to be really careful. And speeding is just rampant.
Well, plus when you put a little alcohol in the mix, the first thing that happens when we start drinking is we get this false sense of courage. And we also think we can talk better, drive better, everything better. So it really becomes so dangerous. Hey, people, if you're going to drink. But go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that the next thing is going to severely irritate half of our audience.
Uh-oh.
The typical drunk driver is a young male with a history of binge drinking. About 4.2 million people, close to 2% of American adults, admit to driving drunk. Alcohol-impaired driving crashes account for about 1/3 of all U.S. crash deaths, Cary. In the past 2 decades. That's a long time. There are an estimated 121 million episodes of drunk driving annually. Men ages 21 to 34 account for 1/3 of drunk driving episodes. Overall, men accounted for 80% of impaired drivers. Now listen to this. The CDC found 4% of adults are binge drinkers. Men who have 5 or more drinks on one occasion, that's binge drinking. For women, it's only 4 or more drinks on one occasion, so they can handle less. Mm-hmm. Sorry, ladies, but that's true.
That's just a fact.
And people who say they sometimes do not wear a seatbelt were 3 times more likely to drive drunk compared with adults who generally buckle up. Oh, and the CDC recommends requiring ignition interlocks, which are breath test devices connected to a vehicle's ignition. I think that's a swell idea.
I do too.
I think they should also have ignition locks for their brains.
Do you know how many lives that would save? Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine over the weekend. I think it should be a federal law that we require breathalyzers, whatever the thing that they use for DUIs.
Yeah,
after DUI, that should be for every car.
I agree.
Just come stock.
Well, you got come stock, because you know how many lives that would save? Because so many people lose their lives out there driving, and they're innocent people. They've done nothing to anybody.
And by the way, for our listeners, that was Jason, our board operator, who actually felt strongly about something and wanted to have a say in it. Thanks, Jason. We appreciate that. Yeah, they should have an ignition lock for the brain and one for the car.
On that note, Mike.
On that note, we will be back with more. April is Alcohol Awareness Month on Families in Action right here on KHTS AM 1220, your hometown station.